we know that the assessments have gone out to our community, and all of us who sit here, I believe, have properties, and we are all very much aware of the steep increase in property values. But I have to say, nobody here has a say in the property values. Those values are determined by the assessor's office. And then from there, people are given the statements that you receive. It's not even a bill, because the board first has to determine the millage rate in order to levy the tax for fiscal year '24, and you have not done that yet. And so the easiest way to understand sometimes is if you think about it this way. If you go to the store and you bought a piece of chicken, and the chicken costs $10 and our tax is 7%, that would be $10.07 when you walked out that door. As we all know, we've had some inflation, and so let's say that same piece of chicken now costs $100. The tax still remains the same, but the amount that you're paying will go up because the value of that piece of chicken has changed. And that's where we find ourselves. The millage rate is the lowest millage rate in more than 25 years. And you have done that. You have taken us from 20 mills, which we were at for 10 years because it took us that long to recover from the recession. And then as soon as we got to a place, if you'll remember, when the state gave us the opportunity to not pay health insurance premiums, this board said, you know what, that's unbudgeted money. We didn't budget for that. Give it back to the taxpayers. And guess what we did? We lowered the millage rate, equivalent to the money that we didn't have to pay in health insurance premiums. And every year since then, we have worked diligently to try to lower the millage rate. We would all love to roll it back to the rollback rate, but there are lots of consequences to the school system if you roll it back too far. You will have to make up equalization money if you get too far in, and we get a lot of equalization money. And so I say all of that to say, you can't make any changes to what the tax assessor has assessed on our properties. What we can do is be fiscally responsible, as we always have been, to look at the financial resources that we have currently, what things we need to have in place, and then weigh that against what the changes, and then roll back wherever we can. And that's what we do, and that's what I would recommend, and I know that's what the five of you would recommend as well. And so I want to put that out there at the front of this conversation because there's been a lot of community consternation around the property assessments, and some of the entities that we partner with have been telling people to come to this building and to put pressure on us to do something. And we're going to do something. We just don't have the information from those entities to make those kinds of decisions at this point. So where we are is in the budget, and we're at the very first official meeting where we're presenting after hearing from board members about the budget, and then we will have plenty of time between now and June 30th, and you won't set the millage rate until the month of July. And so that will be the process. So anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, Ms. Fury, but I would add, because you said at one point we were 20 meals, but you never said the current, so I would just add the 16.78, 78, right?
788.
Okay.
16.788.
Just to let them know what it is now,
Yep.
so that they understand how much we decreased it.
Yes, significant
Yeah,
decreases.
and I think you explained it well. That sounded great. Thank you for that. And also, if we could challenge the tax commissioner's office to provide the digest information in April, May, that would be prior to us budgeting. And I always have made this argument that would be so helpful if we knew what we were working with before we made the budget.
Right.
Because we then get accused of making a budget and then just getting the money from the taxpayer for
Right.
however much we need.
Right.
And we don't have any say in that. We don't have any say in what the assessments are. And
Yes.
if we had the digest information earlier, I believe we would be able to, well, we'll still budget the best we can, but
Right.
we'd at least know how much we were dealing with.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think the more information we have, the better and more precise we are. I do want to point out, though, that our budget, for the most part, is largely people. So the way that you get money in a school system, in most school systems in the state and probably across the country, is you cut people. We have very little flexibility in the small part, the 15% or 16, 14% that remains, because there are things like, I joke around and I said, we could cut $2.5 million just like that. Just don't turn the lights on. Those are the big major expenditures that we have, and buying buses and things like that are just the cost of doing business. And just like the community is experiencing inflated prices everywhere they go, we experience those as well. So you can't keep the budget flat because you won't be able to purchase the services or materials or resources that you need, but you don't have to raise it to where it feels like it's gouging people. And I don't want to be gouged. I live here. I've lived here for 30 plus years. I don't want to be gouged. None of you want to be gouged. So we have to look at it with a very close eye to make sure that what we are asking for is what we need and not what we want. It's what we need to operate our school system. And I think we do, folks in this room will tell you, we're like sharpening pencils, and I'm like, 10%, knock off 10%. And they're like, if we knock off 10%, we can't even purchase the materials we need to run our departments. I'm like, okay, well, just try it, let's see. But we're so tight, try to be so tight in every department, so that we can be fiscally responsible. And I think to be where we are in our school system, given the history of our tax digest, we have done a fantastic job meeting the needs of our kids, meeting the needs of our staff. That's another area that you have to think about, has to always be in the front of your mind. We're in a very competitive market when it comes to hiring teachers, hiring custodians, bus drivers. It's all about the dollar right now. And so if you don't remain competitive, then we're just going to fall behind and struggle to hire people to fill these positions that we have. And you've done that. We've done that. And that's a part of this budget, to try to make sure that we are considering everything that's out there, and it is well-rounded, but not making people feel like they feel right now because they've got this property assessment that has inflated the amounts that they're responsible for, but they don't yet know what we're going to do, which could change things for them once we get all of these dollars and information from the tax commissioner's office. And once that happens, we're going to do our best to try to tighten things and give people back what they have been asking for. Thank you. And with that being said, long diatribe there. But I just felt it was important to kind of put it on the record, so when people watch this back, they'll hear that. And Ms. Robinson, you want to take us through the presentation today?
Sure. Good afternoon. So today I'm going to share some updates that we have for the budget since our last meeting on March 29th. We were missing some key pieces of the budget at that time, and so we have since received a majority of that information, so we're going to share that with you today. So first, I do want to thank you all for taking the time to review the budget and send us your questions so that we had time to respond to your questions. That was very helpful for us in this process. So in March, one of the key pieces of information that we were missing was our state allocation that we were going to receive for fiscal year 24. So we now have that information. And so on this first slide here, I have summarized the totals between state and local revenue for fiscal year 24. So for fiscal year 24, we are slated to receive $128.7 million in state revenue. And we have estimated that we would receive $88.4 million in local revenue. And so you can see there the percentage of revenue by category. So the state revenue represents about 59% of our total revenue, and the local revenue represents about 41%. So as we predicted in March, we were going to have an increase in our state revenue, and that is to help with the insurance increase that we're going to see for our health insurance premiums, as well as our the salary increase for the certified personnel. We did also, unfortunately, see an increase in our local fair share, which causes a decrease in our revenue, and that was about 2.4 million. But overall, we do have an increase, but the local fair share did increase by $2.4 million. On the local side of revenue, when we had the meeting in March, we did not have any information. Well, we only had limited information about any numbers for the tax digest. And so at that time, we estimated a 5% increase in the tax digest. We have since revised that estimate due to information that we have received from various individuals or various entities. And just doing our own research, we have increased that estimate to 15%. And so now in the budget document that you have, the local revenue, the property tax revenue, is based on an increase in the tax digest of 15%. And the last two bullets there are the same from the previous presentation. We're expecting a slight decrease in the intangible and the real estate transfer tax, and an increase in interest earnings and other local revenue. I know this is really small to see, but this is actually our budget, our revenue budget by line item. So here is all the revenue that we budgeted for fiscal year '24. The previous slide was a summary. Here it is line by line. This is in your budget document as well, so you can see that later, as you need to look at it. So in total for fiscal year '24, we budgeted $217.2 million in revenue. From the previous year was 201. And again, a lot of that increase is due to the QBE funding that we'll receive.
Can I ask a question in the dark? Is that okay? Is that number the proposed number, local 78 million? Is that accurate from the 15%, or is that the old percentage?
That is the 15% number.
So what's the front page, the 88.4 million?
It is the total of everything that's under local revenue. So line 1 through 6.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You add all 1 through 6 together and you get 88.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So those are all the adjustments for our revenue that we have made since our last meeting. Now I will move on to the expenditures. We only had 2 adjustments within the line items on our budget from the March 29th meeting. So on page 4, line 3, we had a typo there. It said 20,000. It should say 200,000. So we updated that. And then on page 22, line 4, we did receive an updated quote for Nearpod. So that increased by $4,000. So overall, we've made an adjustment to the expenditures of $184,000. If you need me to repeat those line items, I'll do that again. So on page 4, line 3, in your previous budget from March 29th, it said $20,000. It is updated now to say $200,000. And on page 22, line 4, it was previously 130, and now says 134. So the chart here is virtually the same with the addition of the $184,000. So the categories here of our budget, the rankings are still the same. The majority of our budget is salary and benefits, which is 85.65%, followed by textbooks, which is 4.49%. And so those two added together is over 90% of our budget. And if we break down our salary and benefits further by function code, this chart is virtually the same as well as far as the rankings go. So our largest portion of salary and benefits goes towards instruction. On here, this slide is still the same. There were no changes. We are still proposing the same salary schedule updates that we proposed on March 29th. And so just to run through those really quickly again, we are proposing the certified salary increase of $2,000. This was approved in the governor's budget. And so for us, the total cost of that with salary and benefits would be about $3.4 million. We're proposing a classified salary increase of 3%, and that total would be $982,000. We're also proposing a pay grade adjustment for custodians. We want to increase their pay grade from 4A to 5, and that total cost is $134,000. And then lastly, we are proposing to extend the certified salary schedule. Currently, our salary schedule stops at year 26, and so we want to extend that out to year 30. And that cost would be just over $1 million. And so the next few slides are about our health insurance increase. The information here is still the same. The increases are still in our budget as proposed in March. There are no change to the numbers. Just to run through just a little background, in January, the certified employee premium that the employer pays increased from $945 to $1,580 per member per month. So that increase is already in effect, and it will continue on into next fiscal year and beyond. And so at the beginning of fiscal year 23, we were funded through QBE for 1,114 positions, and that generated $12.6 million in health insurance funding that the state provided for us to pay for health insurance for certified staff. In fiscal year 24, we are budgeting $20.5 million for certified staff employer health insurance premiums. That is based on a participant count of 1,086. And so, of course, that number could fluctuate just based on when we get new employees in and whether or not they opt to have health insurance or not. And then also during open enrollment, all employees have the option to either enter or exit the health insurance program. The one key piece of information the new information that we have since the last meeting is at the bottom of this slide. So we now know for fiscal year 24 that we're going to receive just over $20 million for health insurance for certified employees. So that covers 1,055 certified employees. So we have budgeted $20.5 million based on 1,086 employees. So that means about $600,000 of it is going to have to be covered through local funding. Next, this is the information on the classified health insurance increase. The difference between the certified and the classified health insurance increase is that the classified increase is going to be phased in over 3 years, beginning in January of 2024. And so in January of 2024, we're going to see an increase of $250 per member per month. And that's going to increase again in January of 25 by another $250. And then in January of '26, it's going to increase again by $135. So by the time we get to January '26, the total increase will add to $635, which is the same increase that we are experiencing right now for certified employees. And again, we do not receive any funding for classified staff. So any health insurance premiums that we pay for classified staff is through local funding.
So Erica,
Yes.
I want to say something about this one right quick. So I know you have the 1580 on here by 2026, and the way it is proposed, a lot of people are reading that wrong. And there is a line item in there about the increase to 1580, and it's worded a minimum or at least 1580. So there is a chance that it'll be above this amount. And so a lot of people are not paying attention to that line that's in that state legislation or that budget regarding this. So I just want to bring that to your attention, that it says that because we were discussing that at our GSBA meeting with our lobbyists, and a lot of districts are not paying attention to the fact that it says a minimum or at least. So, per our lobbyists for GSBA, that really means it's going to be more than this amount.
Right, and hopefully they would let us know, prior to, instead of, instead of 6 months before, hopefully they would at least let us know, at least a year in advance so that we can begin to plan for it. So for fiscal year '24, we have budgeted for 559 participants. That's how many participants we had as of January 1st. And so we have used that number to budget for fiscal year '24. And the total here for classified employees would be $7.3 million that we would pay in health insurance premiums for fiscal year '24. And then using that same number for fiscal year '25 and '26, using the 559, I just have an estimate there because, of course, that 559 is going to fluctuate by the time we get to fiscal year '26. So you can see in fiscal year '25, we're looking at about $8.8 million, which is an increase over fiscal year '24 of 1.5. And then in fiscal year '26, we're looking at $10.1 million, and that's an increase of 1.2 over fiscal year ~25. So by the time we get to fiscal year '26, we will be looking at almost $4 million, including the increase for the coming year. We will be looking at almost $4 million in an increase that we will experience for classified health insurance, assuming they don't increase it again.
And it doesn't include, it only includes 559 people. If more people jump in the health insurance pool, that number goes up.
Yes. So the salary and the benefits are the largest, I'm sorry?
We were just saying that, just to reiterate, that we do not get any state
Yes.
funding for any classified health insurance premiums at all.
That is
Not a
correct.
penny. And if it goes up, if the number goes up in one fiscal year, you'll have to carry it over to the next fiscal year. So it's a very interesting situation with our health insurance premiums.
Yes, that is correct. We do not receive any funding for classified employees. So the salary and benefits, that is the largest increase in our budget for fiscal year '24. Yes.
Before you jump into that, who are our classified employees? Let's talk about who they are.
Okay. Our classified employees are going to be our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers, our bus monitors, our mechanics, any clerks, any bookkeepers, nurses. That's the majority of the school nutrition employees. That's the majority of them.
Custodians.
Custodians, yes.
So we are left to either not offer health insurance to those employees because, or the state is telling us, you either don't offer that benefit or fund it locally. And that's what
Yes.
we're having to do, is fund it locally. We want them to have the benefit. I'm just saying, but we're forced to do it locally rather than any help from the state, correct?
That's correct. You have to fund it locally, and the only way you don't fund it locally is if you reduce staff. You
Yeah.
cut staff.
Okay.
And just for the record, I'm not interested in
No.
cutting staff.
Yeah, and we also, we have to offer, at least offer health insurance. If we don't, we'll get fined by the IRS for not offering affordable health care.
Okay.
Okay, so here I have the significant budget additions to the general fund listed by strategic goal area. And so first here we have student achievement and success. And so we have included in the budget and requested funding for the Innovation for Learning program. We have also included Nearpod and Remind School licenses. These were items that were budgeted in the ESSER 2 budget. We will exhaust the ESSER 2 funds this year. So if we wish to keep these items, they would have to be in the general fund. We are requesting a .5 gifted teacher for the theme school and a .5 assistant principal for Alcovy High School. And we are also requesting an upgrade of the grants coordinator position. Under high quality workforce, we have requested to include and implement a wellness incentive program. And we have also included the online wellness platform for employees. The platform was previously in the ESSER 2 budget. So again, that funding is going away. And as we just discussed, we have included the permanent pay raises and the increase in the health insurance costs. Under culture, climate, and communication, we have included a counselor for Newton High School and a .5 counselor for Alcovy High School. And then last, under organizational and operational effectiveness, we have included in the budget a request to upgrade switches, as well as a request to upgrade the public relations specialist position. Here is the updated expenditure budget summary. It's also in your budget document that you have. It has been updated to include the $184,000 that I mentioned earlier. So if you compare the two, you'll see that's the difference in the overall number. So for our next steps, we have completed the first 4 here. And so now, today we're having the budget work session. After today, we'll continue to review the budget. And then we are asking for an adoption of the tentative budget on May 9th. We would need it to be on that day in order for us to meet all the other requirements that we have to make before the final budget is approved on June 20th. And so one of the requirements is we do have to do some advertising. And so our first advertisements would be on May 14th and May 21st. We would have to put the approved tentative budget in the Covington News. And then lastly, we are asking for adoption of the final FY24 budget on June 20th, 2023. And so in your notebooks here that you have a copy of this presentation. You also have the updated version of the general fund budget, the detailed budget. Behind there, you have the SPLOST budget. And then the last tab is the advertisement that will go in the newspaper once the tentative budget is approved. So at this time, that would conclude this presentation. And I would turn it back over to Ms. Henderson Baker for any questions from the board.
All right, everyone had a chance to submit questions to Mrs. Fury for the executive leadership team regarding the budget. So I think everyone got their questions submitted and answered. Do we have any questions regarding any of the new updates that Erica presented to us?
Not specifically any new add-ins, but is this a place to ask other questions or just statements?
Is it, let's see what the questions are. Is it something they're
Okay.
going to need to research? I don't know. So
No,
let's
no.
see what, okay.
I don't have anything like that.
Okay, go ahead then. You can proceed.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. Proposed revenue is at 217,238,858. That's revenue collected.
Correct.
With expenses at 227,923,774. So we're proposing to spend 10.8 million more than we are projecting in revenue. And we're going to make up that difference with the ending fund balance, the money
Yes.
in savings? Okay. And what is that currently? It's 46 million or?
We're projecting that for the beginning of fiscal year '24, it's going to be 54.6 million.
Okay, projected at 54.6?
Yes, and that's going to be in your budget document that you have. That number is in there on the first page behind the general fund budget tab.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Go
I have a
ahead.
question. You see me look? All right. So, Ms. Henderson Baker, I know that GSBA annually lobbies for the QBE formula was instituted in 1985, is that right? 89, 85, somewhere in there?
85.
85, and that's the quality basic education formula that the state uses to then send money down to the school systems, right? That's
Yes.
where we get our state funding from that QBE formula. I know GSBA lobbies for that to be looked at and changed every year so far with no help, but I don't know if you've heard anything from the Dome. Is there any hope? And I guess I'm asking both of you because I know you're both well-connected there, but is there any hope that's going to be looked at this year, next year? rather?
Maybe next year, but I have not heard any feedback that they're going to look at the formula. There have been multiple groups over the years that have looked at the funding formula and made proposals, and it has always been tabled and put to the side. And it's a hard nut to crack, because whenever you start dealing with the QBE funding formula, there will be winners
Right.
and there will be losers. And
Okay.
so the folks that have been at the table trying to make the changes have really worked very hard to try to balance all of that. And I have not heard to date if there is any movement on updating the QBE funding formula.
That wasn't really even a topic of discussion this year, to be honest with you, Trey. Unfortunately, the charter school
I know,
stuff
that's what
was like a daily topic, and committee meetings was a huge topic. And to be honest with you, they have already started to move on that, because the day after the session ended, you have the charter school people who are already starting to put funding in place to kind of, again, because they were so close to really promoting that for next year. And that's how they do every year. That's an unfortunate and a hard battle for public schools. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize how much they do. They bring in, and if I could just paint a picture of what you see in the Gold Dome, they bring in kids from the schools, from the charter schools, and they go to the committee meetings, and they, just like we have public participation, Dr. Barr laughing at me, but it is true. They get on the mic and they tell these sob stories of experiences they had in public school and how much they love their charter schools. And if I can be honest, that's something our public school students can't do. We can't bus our public school students to miss school every day or 3 days a week, to stand in a meeting all day long and talk about their experience, their wonderful experience last night at a function over for the Honor Society. They can't do that because they miss a day of learning. And that's where you get the accountability, the lack of accountability measures that they have compared to us. Our students can't miss school to do that.
Right.
So it is a very tough battle. So nobody is really discussing that old QBE formula
Right.
that if from 1985, I think I was in first or second grade. And that's what I told Richard Woods when I was on stage with him, like, what is his thoughts? And I wanted to paint a visual for him to help him understand. I was like in first or second grade when this was created.
Yeah.
And now I got, 2 kids that are over 18.
Yeah. Well, with the QBE formula, I think we know that probably still needs to be looked at for that very reason. But also, and I know you were hitting around the point, but I just want to make it clear, if a charter school type bill passes, that's money that goes away from public schools. And that means
Absolutely.
this number that we'll be dealing with will continue to decrease. And if I'm looking at this right, FY '22, 64% of our budget came from state revenue, 61% this year. And then for '24, we're looking at 59%. So that's 5 percentage points drop in 2 years. What is that trend? And like, if the QBE stays the same, that trend's going to continue, it looks like, putting more burden on our local taxpayers. And I know they're going to get loud, and maybe rightfully so, but we can't, I mean, we still have to educate 20,000 kids.
Right.
And our local revenue is our burden keeps going up when the state's goes down. And we could really use some partnership from the Dome to help us out with that. That's what I think I'm
So
making a
what
case
you
for.
said is something I tell people all the time they don't understand. Out in the masses, in the community, they say, why don't y'all do this? Why don't you do that? But they don't know the backstories of what you just said and what we're battling against. And so it's hard for us to do that. They'll say, oh, you guys got the money, do it. Like, as a district, I was telling students that at Cousins the other day, but you don't understand that backstory of what you just said, so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, while you said that, I want to take the opportunity for our local delegation, the ones that did vote no, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for believing in us and fighting for us. And thank you for even going, we had a couple that went to the mic. So thank you for going to the mic and not sitting there silently in your seat. For the one or two that did vote yes, I hope that you will come or accept an opportunity to come into our school district and visit our schools and talk to our kids before you just vote yes for something and you have no idea what we're doing over here.
Madam Chairman, can I ask a question, and you may be able to answer, but I know you will. I know for the charter schools, they were proposing like a $6,000 per student to travel or to go with the student. What is the current amount, and Ms. Robinson, you could answer this too, what is the current amount that we get per student? Can you remind me?
Then that's ironic that you're going to ask that, because I was just going to say, interestingly enough, they started at $6,000 per student and increased it to $6,500, which is more than 2 times what we receive from the state per student, who's not receiving specialized services, like maybe special education or any of the support services. So they would be sending with the children 2 times as much as they send to the local school systems, which is just a terrible situation all the way around. And Ms. Henderson Baker's point about coming to see us, that's a great thing. Our kids would be so happy to talk to you and talk to them about the wonderful things that happen in our school system. And no, we are not perfect. We are not. We are larger than any of our cities. When you think about, when we're all together, we are bigger than our cities. And we do amazing things, but things will happen that we have to address, and we have processes and procedures in them. The difference between the Newton County school system and a private sector school is we are accountable to the public. We have to be transparent with our budget, with our processes and procedures. We are governed by the federal government, by the state government, and the private entities have no accountability or responsibility to any of those entities. They don't have to take the state's assessments. They don't have to do any of that. And so while they are likely experiencing similar problems, they don't have to broadcast them for the whole wide world to know about. And so it just sets up a system that creates taking children away from a school system, diluting the funds available to the children that we serve in a way that makes it harder for us to serve them. And as a community, we have to take a stand. And I don't care which side of the fence you're on, but I would advocate to be on the side of the fence of our children. And there are lots of them in our school system, just about 20,000. And the other thing that people don't think about when they think about these vouchers programs or these educational savings accounts, you're taking money away from our children, but as you take the money away, so do the jobs go away. So no one talks about the economic impact that will happen when these dollars leave our community. Who's going to teach the children? They're not going to have the children to teach, so they will go away. What does that look like in a community like ours, where we're the largest employer? It looks like disaster. And nobody is talking about that. They're talking about other things. And my concern, first and foremost, will always be for our students. But right behind them in a close second are the people who serve our students. And no one's really having conversations about that.
One more thing to add to that, I know I've had to explain to constituents before about how staff is paid. And we're not the ones just making and pulling dollars out of the air to pay staff. It is set by the state, and we can add to it. But our supplements that are added are across the board the same. So there is not another administrator or teacher getting more than what is in that shared document, the local supplement, and the state supplement.
Just
So-
depends on where you are on the scale.
where you are on the scale, how many years, what your degrees are, but everything is set there. Like I said, I think that's misunderstanding out in the community is that, where some administrators are making more and we're just pulling these numbers out of the air and it's not.
Not at all.
Good point. And just, again, that we are willing to offer benefits to everybody that works for the school system, basically. I mean, if you're a full-time employee. That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Classified and certificated
Yeah.
employees. That's a big deal for a lot of people. I would hate to see that not be an option. I couldn't even believe that would be an option. But not to have state funding to help with that?
Right. Yeah, it's tough. It's just the same thing with transportation costs. So we get a very, very, very small fraction of what it costs to have a bus fleet. And so the local taxpayers are paying to keep our buses up to snuff. And that's why we have bus purchases in the general fund budget. But if you'll recall, we put them in the SPOS budget as well, because we don't need buses on the road that are 18 and 19 years old where we're, just pulling them over and having to repair them all of the time. They're out of service, so you've got to keep up with the fleet. And they give us a fraction of the dollars that are necessary. And we've asked the state to put some line items in the QBE budget, and they were for school safety. And what you saw was a $50,000 per school one time, and the governor did previous to that, $30,000. And just to make sure everybody knows what we did with those dollars, we added surveillance cameras on all of our buildings. Prior to, we did not have surveillance cameras on our elementary schools. They all have that now. And now with the $50,000, we are working hopefully with the county, because they have upgraded their call system, and we want to have direct access to them via a walkie-talkie system. And so we've been trying to do it, Dr. Barr, for several years now. And it's not that we were having a hard time. They were going through their processes. And so now that they have landed where they're going to land, we'll use those dollars. But once we use them, they're gone. So now that you have all of these radio systems in the schools, it becomes our job then to maintain them. So while it's not an expense right now, it will be an expense in the future if we have to purchase new radios or maintain them. But we asked for a line item in the budget that could help us offset some of these safety and security costs, and we were unsuccessful, but we did get the $50,000. We also asked for there to be a line item for transportation. And there is a line item, but it's not nearly enough. The same thing with our school nurses. We get a fraction of what it costs to pay for our school nurses. So in order to have a school nurse in our schools, which, by the way, not all districts have school nurses in their buildings. They don't have them. And we are fortunate to have them. But the difference between what the state gives us to pay them and what it costs to maintain their employment comes from the local digest. And that's why it's a partnership between the state and the locals. And it used to be that the state funded our school system 76% because of the recession. And then as the digest improved, they back down, and then you scale up. And it's supposed to be pretty 50-50-ish. But we're still not really where lots of other districts are in terms of financial wealth.
Madam Chair, just one thing to add. I know, and this is something I want people to understand, and they may not have understood it 100% in watching this. 85% of our budget goes to staff. I mean, that's not buses, that's not the programs you're teaching. That is strictly staff, and those staff, again, are set on a pay scale. So we don't have the choice to really change that. So when people complain about, sports activities and the buses and things like that, we only have a certain amount of money that we can play with, so to speak.
And just for the record, when it comes to athletics, do you want to guess how much money the state sends to us for our athletic programs?
I'll guess.
Guess.
0.
Zero.
All right.
A whopping 0. So every program that we have in our school system that is an athletic program, a band program, any of those things, there is no extra money to be able to do that. And so for our kids to be able to play football, to play soccer, to go to baseball and softball and do all those wonderful things, swim team, that's on the backs of the people in our community. And you have a choice. We either pay for it because we want our kids to be well-rounded and prepared for the future, or we don't, and we don't have those kinds of activities anymore. And I'm just saying, I'm for the kids, so I want us to have all of the things that our kids deserve. And that means that we have to pay for them.
Can I make a comment? Ms. Fury, will you make a comment, please, relative to the county's wealth and how we stack up with other counties and where we're ranked and the impact that's having and the results that we are performing here on the budget?
Yeah, so I don't, Mr. Johnson, know the exact rank, but I can tell you that we've been as low as in the bottom 10 counties, the bottom 10. Since we've had some real strong economic development, we are seeing movement, and we will continue to see movement the more opportunities that come to our community. So while everybody is upset that we're not the small town that we once were, we're growing, in order that these businesses that come to our community help to offset some of those assessments that we're experiencing now. The more businesses that come, the more likely they are to help us pay for our school system. But Mr. Johnson, we are definitely not in the top tier of wealth in the state. We're probably ranking towards the bottom 50%. And that's better than we've been in a really super long time. So kudos to our economic development folks and our chamber. They're out there pounding the pavement, but we need more of those large impact businesses to come to our community so that they can help us increase the wealth of our school system. And you all know in the July meeting, I will show you how much our digest contributes per pupil. And historically, for as long as I've been doing this, we have been below every single school system and community anywhere within 100 miles around us. And so what that says is that we get a really good bang for our buck because we are not investing per pupil the same amount that other districts like Forsyth County is investing $6,000 just out of their digest, not out of the state funds as well. And that's probably an exaggeration. It's probably closer to 4,000 or 5,000. But we'll show you that, and I show you that not to say anything negative, just to say this is the reality of the situation in which we find ourselves. We're getting better in terms of our wealth, but we're not in a place where we can afford to do some of the things that other districts you might see are doing. We kind of have to play it on the very conservative side, and we do.
Yep. And not to paint too bleak a picture, the economic impact is increasing. It is getting better. The industries that are coming in and some that are, the abatements that are rolling off now, and we're starting to see
Yes.
some tax dollars, that helps out a ton.
Yes.
So as those the abatements continue to fade away and the tax dollars come in from them, that's helpful. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if Asher Dozier or one of them, we're talking about the median income in Newton County, I think's just gotten over the $70,000 mark.
It has, yes.
So that's a big deal for us. I know we still have a high poverty rate, but the median income being over 70,000 shows that there's some good jobs in the community, and that there is, there's hope. We
Yes.
got some good hope happening here.
We
and
really do.
Good school system, so this is a place to be.
It really is. It's a happening place. It's a great place. The people here are incredible. Our staff is incredible. Our kids are, I mean, I don't even know. They're just so awesome. Just to see them and to hear them speak, and to, I had a statewide committee in our, at the College and Career Academy on Friday, and they're called the Georgia Deeper Learning Network, and we are a member of that organization. It doesn't cost anything to be a member. We're just a member because we're really interested in ensuring our kids have high-quality learning experiences. And when those folks saw our kids and listened to our kids talk, they were blown away. They were like, "What is this? We've never seen anything like this. Your kids are brilliant," and they are in all of our schools. It just so happened that it was there, but it could be at any of our schools that we bring people in to talk to our kids and to our staff, and you walk away feeling energized, and you feel like your investment is so worth it, because we are building the people who will take care of us in the future. So we have to invest in them now so that they have everything they need to take care of us. And we're very, very fortunate and in a good place. And I tell Sarah and Asher this all the time: stop abating school taxes. And they say, yes, we hear you. And they do what they can to try to mitigate for a school tax abatement, because that does matter. So, Mr. Johnson, a long way around the circle. We are not where.
You're there.
We're not where we need to be. We're still in the bottom 50%, but we are so much better than we were in 2010 and 12.
Well, the key thing that I was looking to say, that
Did I
the
say it?
public, that we're giving them the best bang for their buck
We are.
anywhere they can go. That's the bottom line.
We are doing a great job, and you'll notice, just keep your ears open. You, as a board, have done a great job fiscally managing our school system, because what you're hearing now is people are going to be cut out. They're going to be removed from their school systems. They're going to be laid off. And we're not even having those conversations. We're not talking about it. We're not thinking about it. And that's because we are fiscally responsible and doing the right things with our money. And we need our folks in our community to be able to work. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you all. Thank you, Erica. Any other matters of interest? Okay, having none, I will adjourn the meeting, 5:59. I don't need a motion since it's a special call, so 5:59 PM. Thank you.